The war had begun without warning. One moment the desert world of Terreno was quiet, its red sand stretching endlessly under the suns, and the next, smoke and fire rose from the horizon. Ships burned in the sky, their engines trailing dark clouds, before crashing into the rocks below. Villages were torn apart, and screams carried over the wind. It was a war no one had expected, yet it had arrived with cruel force. The young alien woman, Syria, stood among the ruins of her people's outpost. Her long silver hair clung to her face, sticky with sweat, as she pressed her hand to her injured side. Her amber eyes narrowed when she saw the human soldier approaching. His armor was dented, his helmet tucked under his arm, and dust-covered. His face, but his stance was steady. His name was Captain Marcus Hale, and though he was far from home, his presence was like a wall against the chaos around them. "You shouldn't stay here," Marcus said, his voice firm. "More drones will be sweeping the area soon. If you move now, I can guide you through the ridge where they won't detect us." Syria's pride flared like a blade. She straightened, ignoring the pain that shot through her ribs. "I do not need a human to guide me," she spat, her words sharp. "This is my world, my fight. I know these lands better than you ever will." Marcus didn't flinch. His blue eyes met hers, steady and calm, though the urgency in his tone never faded. "Knowing the land won't save you from their scanners. They track heat, movement, even breath. You don't understand their machines, but I do. If you want to live, follow me." Her people had always told her that humans were reckless, arrogant, and cruel. She had believed it. She had mocked the idea that any human could outthink her or stand stronger than her. Yet here he was, calm under fire, offering her a path out. It felt like a trap, a trick, and she clenched her fists. "I will not be ordered by you." The air cracked with the hiss of an approaching drone. Its dark metallic shape drifted above. The rocks, red eyes glowing as it scanned the ruins. Marcus immediately pushed Syria down behind a shattered wall. She tried to pull away, but his armored grip held her steady. A beam of light swept over the rubble, humming as it passed just inches above their heads. Her heart pounded in her chest as the drone lingered, scanning for movement. She bit her lip to keep from gasping, but her pride still screamed inside her. When the drone finally drifted away, Marcus released her. "That was your last warning," he said quietly. "Stay proud, stay stubborn, and you'll be dead within." The hour. Syria glared at him, but her body trembled. She refused to admit that her chest was tight with fear. She had survived ambushes before. She had fought soldiers before. But never had she faced machines that seemed to sense her very pulse. She pushed herself to her feet and stumbled forward, choosing her own path through the cactus-filled valley. Marcus cursed under his breath and followed at a distance. He didn't know her anything, but something about her defiance kept him from walking away. He had seen warriors like her before, too proud to bend, too stubborn to see the trap until it snapped shut. And he knew, soon enough, the pain would come. Syria's steps grew heavier as the heat pressed down. She reached a cluster of tall cactuses, their green arms bristling with sharp spines. She forced her way through, ignoring Marcus's sharp warning. "Stop! Don't go that way." But she didn't listen. She thought she knew better than the human. The moment she brushed past the cactus, dozens of long spines pierced her side and leg. The pain was instant, burning like fire under her skin. She gasped and cried out, collapsing to her knees. The spines dug deeper with every movement, and her pride shattered into raw agony. Marcus was there in an instant, pulling her back carefully, his armored hands steady as her blood stained the sand. She trembled, sweat dripping from her brow, her lips trembling with the words she couldn't bring herself to say. She had refused his advice, and now her pain screamed the truth he had already known. For the first time, Syria's eyes softened, her voice breaking as she whispered, "Help me." "Human." Marcus didn't hesitate. "I already am. The desert wind howled around them, carrying the smoke of war, as the stubborn alien warrior learned the first painful price of defiance. Asterisk. Syria's breathing was sharp and uneven as Marcus carefully snapped the cactus spines, pulling them free one by one. Each removal sent a fresh wave of pain through her body, and her pride cracked further with every gasp she couldn't hold back. The desert sun burned above them, the air dry and merciless, yet Marcus's hands worked with calm precision. He didn't look at her face, didn't mock her weakness. He only focused on the task, as if her survival mattered more than her arrogance. When the last thorn was removed, Syria slumped against a rock, her body trembling. Blood streaked her skin, her clothes torn, but her amber eyes still flickered. With fire, I would have managed, she whispered, her voice unsteady. Marcus looked at her then, his blue eyes sharp. No, you wouldn't have. Pride doesn't stop you from bleeding out in the sand. It doesn't stop the machines from tracking you. It only makes you easier to kill. His tone wasn't cruel, but it cut through her like steel. She wanted to argue, to spit venom at him again, but the throbbing in her side silenced her. Instead, she pressed her lips together and turned her gaze away. The sound of engines drifted from above, low and mechanical. Marcus's expression darkened. He grabbed her arm, pulling her up despite her weak protests. We can't stay here. They'll be sweeping this valley next. Move. Syria staggered at first, her steps uneven, but Marcus kept her upright with one strong hand. His armor clinked with every movement, his pace steady and confident even as shadows of drones swept across the ground. The two of them moved through the maze of rocks and cactuses, each step a test of trust she hadn't chosen but now couldn't escape. Finally, they reached the ridge Marcus had spoken of earlier. From there, the valley stretched wide and empty, dotted with the glowing red eyes of patrol drones. Syria caught her breath at the sight. There were more machines than she had imagined, far more. The sky itself seemed alive with their constant circling. Marcus crouched low and guided her down beside him. Look, this is what you were walking into, he said, pointing to the patterns of the drones as they scanned in perfect synchronization. You wouldn't have made it 10 steps before they lit you up. Syria's throat tightened, and for once, she didn't argue. She had thought her knowledge of the land gave her an advantage, but these machines didn't care about the land. They didn't care about pride. They only cared about finding targets, and she had nearly delivered herself to them. Marcus studied her for a long moment before speaking again. Your people are scattered. If you want to live, you'll follow my lead from here on. I don't care if you hate me, but I won't drag you out of another mistake. The words stung, but beneath them was a truth she could no longer ignore. Her body still ached from the cactus spines, a sharp reminder of her failure. Slowly, grudgingly, she nodded. Fine, human. Lead. Marcus gave a short nod, then began moving along the ridge, keeping low and silent. Syria followed, her pride burning hotter than the desert sun. Each step felt heavier, not from the wounds alone, but from the weight of admitting, if only to herself, that the human was right. Hours passed as they weaved through the wasteland. Once, Syria stumbled, her strength nearly gone, but Marcus caught her without hesitation. His arm around her shoulder was firm, steadying her until she regained her footing. She wanted to shake him off, to prove she didn't need him, but the truth was cruel. Without him, she wouldn't have lasted this long. At dusk, they reached the mouth of a narrow canyon. The walls rose high, shadows stretching long as the sun's dipped low. Marcus stopped and motioned for her to wait. This canyon leads to an old shelter. It was built for miners decades ago. Abandoned now, but hidden well. We'll rest there tonight. Syria leaned against the stone, exhaustion dragging at her bones. You seem to know too much about my world, she muttered, suspicion lacing her tone. Marcus glanced back at her, his expression unreadable. That's because I've been fighting here longer than you think. You're not the only one who's bled for this desert." His words stirred something unexpected in her. She had always pictured humans as outsiders, invaders who walked with arrogance across worlds not their own. But Marcus spoke with the tone of someone who had suffered, who had endured. It unsettled her, because it sounded too close to the truth she knew only her people carried. They entered the canyon quietly. The walls shielded them from the drones above, and after a long walk, Marcus led her into a half-buried shelter carved into the rock. Inside, dust-coated old equipment, and the air was stale but safe. Syria collapsed onto the ground, her body giving in at last. Marcus set down his gear and pulled out a small kit, lighting a faint glow that illuminated the cramped chamber. For the first time since the war began, there was silence, no drones, no screams, only the beating of their hearts in the dark. Syria's pride still simmered, but as she watched Marcus prepare a ration and water, a different thought crept in. He could have left her behind. He could have let her bleed in the sand. Yet he hadn't. He had carried her through fire and pain, and though she didn't understand why, the truth was clear. Without him, she would already be dead. She lay back, closing her eyes, her voice barely a whisper. "Perhaps not all humans are fools." Marcus, sitting beside the dim light, allowed himself a small, tired smile. "And perhaps not all aliens are hopeless." The desert night deepened outside, carrying the weight of war. But inside that shelter, an uneasy alliance was beginning to form, one born from pain, pride, and the first sparks of trust. The night in the canyon was cold, the kind of cold that crept into bones and refused to leave. Syria wrapped her arms around herself, shivering as she lay against the stone floor of the shelter. She hated that her body betrayed her with weakness, hated that every breath reminded her of the wounds Marcus had patched. Her pride whispered that she should have been able to endure without his help, but the truth gnawed at her. She had survived only because of him. Marcus sat near the entrance, armor still on, watching the narrow crack of sky above. The glow of drones moved like stars that hunted, their red eyes scanning the world. He hadn't slept, not even for a moment, and Syria wondered what kind of man could remain so steady after everything. "You don't trust me," she said suddenly. Her voice low but sharp in the silence. Marcus didn't turn his head. "Trust is earned, not given. And right now, I don't know if you'll follow my orders or walk straight into another cactus." Her cheeks burned at the reminder. "I am not a child." "Then stop acting like one." The words cut deeper than the cactus spines had. She glared at him, but his gaze remained fixed on the sky, calm and unshaken. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not her warriors, not her elders. She was a daughter of Tarina, born into strength and fire. But this human spoke as though he had the right to judge her. Hours passed in tense silence. Finally, Marcus rose and checked the small device strapped to his wrist. A faint holographic map flickered above it, showing clusters of red moving across the terrain. His jaw tightened. "We leave at dawn. If we stay here, they'll box us in." Syria pushed herself up, her body sore. "Where are we going?" "To find the others. If any of your people survived, they'll be heading for the mountains. It's the only place the scanners can't reach." Her heart leapt at the thought of survivors. She had believed her village destroyed, her people scattered into dust. The chance that some still lived filled her chest with a hope she hadn't felt since the first blasts of war. "Then we must go now." Marcus held up a hand. "Not now. If we move in darkness, we'll freeze or stumble into a drone patrol. At dawn, we move fast and quiet. You'll follow my lead this time." His eyes locked on hers, unyielding. No arguments. Syria wanted to snap at him, to remind him that she was not his soldier. But the memory of the cactus needles burning in her flesh silenced her. She gave a curt nod, though the fire of defiance still flickered within her. When dawn came, the two of them slipped from the canyon. The desert stretched wide, golden under the twin suns. The heat was already rising. But Marcus led them with careful precision, using every shadow, every rock, every dip in the sand to stay hidden. Syria followed closely, her eyes scanning the horizon. It wasn't long before they spotted movement figures stumbling across the sands, smoke trailing from their clothing. Syria's heart raced. "My people," she whispered, ready to run. "Forward." Marcus grabbed her arm, holding her back. "Wait, look closer." She squinted, her excitement faltering. The shapes were wrong, too stiff, too mechanical. As the figures drew nearer, she saw the truth. Their faces were masks, their movements too exact. They were drones disguised in the armor of her people, walking bait meant to lure survivors into the open. Syria's stomach turned cold. If Marcus hadn't stopped her, she would have run straight into the trap. Marcus's voice was grim. "They're learning, adapting to you. That's why you need me, Syria. You see your people. I see the machine beneath the skin." Shame burned in her chest, heavy and bitter. Twice now, her instincts would have killed her. Twice, the human had saved her. She didn't speak as they circled wide around the false soldiers, moving through the rocks instead of the open sand. By midday, the heat was unbearable. Sweat soaked her hair, her legs trembling with every step. Marcus pressed forward without complaint, his armor gleaming in the sun, his pace unbroken. When Syria stumbled, he steadied her again, wordless, as if carrying her weight was second nature. Finally, as the suns dipped lower, they reached a cliffside cave hidden among jagged rocks. Marcus motioned for silence and slipped inside first, scanning every shadow. Only when he was certain it was safe did he wave her in. The cave was cool, a welcome relief from the desert. But it wasn't empty. A small group of alien survivors huddled near the back, their eyes wide with fear. Syria gasped, rushing forward. "You live!" she cried, falling to her knees before them. The survivors looked up, relief flooding their faces. But then their gazes shifted to Marcus, and fear twisted into anger. One of them rose, pointing at him with trembling hands. "A human? You brought a human here?" Syria turned, caught between pride and loyalty, her chest tight. She had sworn never to rely on a human, never to trust one. And yet, without Marcus, she would not have found this place, nor lived long enough to see her people again. Marcus's eyes hardened, his voice steady. "Believe what you want. But without me, none of you will survive what's coming." The survivors muttered angrily, their distrust heavy in the air. Syria looked between them and Marcus, her heart torn. She had thought she knew better than the human, but time after time, he had proven her wrong. Now her people looked to her, waiting for her judgment, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't certain which path her pride would let her choose. The cave was thick with tension. The alien survivors huddled together, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. They whispered to each other, their voices carrying distrust and fear. Syria stood in the center, torn between the man who had saved her life and the people she had sworn to protect. One of the survivors, an older warrior with scarred skin, pointed an accusing finger at Marcus. "Humans brought this war to our world. They cannot be trusted. He'll betray us the moment it benefits him." Marcus didn't flinch. He leaned against the stone wall, his helmet resting at his side, his blue eyes calm. "If I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. The drones would have found you hours ago. You're alive because I've kept them from tracking you." The older warrior snarled, "Lies. Machines follow humans too. They'll come here because of him." Syria clenched her fists. She wanted to defend Marcus, but the fire of her pride battled with the loyalty she owed her people. Her voice trembled as she said, "He has saved me twice. Without him, I would not stand here now." Gasps rippled through the group. The admission tasted bitter on her tongue, but it was the truth. She remembered the pain of the cactus needles, the trap of the false soldiers. Both times she had been wrong. Both times Marcus had been right. The older warrior shook his head. You have been deceived, child. His tricks cloud your judgment. Our kind cannot lean on humans. We must endure on our own. Marcus finally stepped forward, his voice sharp. You can endure all you want, but endurance doesn't stop a laser to the chest. You think pride will shield you? It won't. I've fought these machines longer than you've even seen them. If you want to die, fine. But don't drag everyone else with you. His words echoed in the cave. For a moment, silence followed, heavy as stone. Syria's chest tightened as the eyes of the survivors turned to her. She was young, but in that moment, they waited for her choice. Her heart pounded. She wanted to reject Marcus, to hold her pride high and declare her people needed no human. But the memory of pain still lived in her bones. Slowly, with great effort, she said, "We follow him." The older warrior hissed in anger. Others murmured uneasily, but none spoke against her. She had made her choice. Marcus nodded once, as if the decision had been inevitable. Good, then listen carefully. These drones aren't acting alone. They're coordinated from a command hub. Destroy it, and they'll fall. Leave it, and they'll hunt you until the desert holds no bones left to bury. The survivors shifted uncomfortably, doubt flickering in their eyes. Syria narrowed her gaze. And, you know where this hub is? Marcus met her stare without hesitation. Yes, but it won't be easy. It's buried deep, guarded by more machines than you've ever faced. You follow me, and maybe some of you live to see another dawn. Go your own way, and you won't last. Till nightfall, the cave filled with murmurs. Fear warred with hope, suspicion with survival. Finally, the older warrior turned his back with a bitter snarl. If you trust him, then may the sands decide your fate. I will not follow a human. He stormed out of the cave, two others trailing behind. The silence that followed was heavy. Syria lowered her head, ashamed. Part of her wanted to go after them, to plead that they stay. But another part of her, the part that remembered Marcus's calm under fire, knew chasing them would be useless. They had chosen pride, and pride would kill them. Marcus broke the silence. The rest of you eat, rest. At first light we move. The hub won't wait forever. The survivors settled, though unease lingered in their eyes. Syria sat near Marcus, her voice low. If we follow you, if we put our trust in you, will you bring us victory? Marcus's expression hardened, his eyes reflecting the dim glow of his wrist device. I can't promise victory, but I can promise I'll fight till my last breath, to keep you alive. That's more than your pride will ever give you. Her chest tightened at the words. She thought of the older warrior walking into the desert, his back stiff with defiance. She thought of the pain still fresh in her body, the shame of every mistake. For the first time, she wondered if maybe pride was not the fire that kept her strong, but the chain that kept her blind. That night, she didn't sleep. She listened to the quiet breathing of her people, the faint hum of Marcus's device as he tracked the drones. And she realized something that terrified her more than the war itself. She was beginning to trust him. At dawn, they left the cave. The survivors moved silently, their steps guided by Marcus's signals. The desert stretched wide and cruel, but for the first time, Syria did not walk ahead with arrogance. She walked behind him, each step a choice to follow. Hours later, Marcus raised his hand, halting the group. Syria's heart pounded as she followed his gaze. In the distance, half buried beneath the sand, stood a structure of black metal. Its surface pulsed with red light, drones swarming around it like hornets. The hub, Marcus said quietly. Syria swallowed hard. The sight of it filled her with dread. But she forced herself to stand tall. She had chosen this path, chosen to follow him. And now, standing before the heart of the enemy, She would see if the human's wisdom was truly greater than her pride. The black structure pulsed like a heart of iron, its red glow washing the desert in sick light. Syria felt the ground vibrate beneath her feet as more drones circled above, their sharp wings cutting the sky. The survivors behind her shifted uneasily, their whispers like the rustle of dry leaves. Marcus crouched low, studying the hub with calculating eyes. His hand moved across the holographic map on his wrist, tracing patterns of patrols and defenses. His calmness unsettled Syria. To him, this wasn't just a battle, it was a puzzle, and he already seemed to know the pieces. "This is madness," one of the younger survivors hissed. "We can't fight that many machines." Marcus's voice was steady, unshaken. "You can't fight them head-on." "But I don't plan to." Syria leaned closer. "Then what do you plan?" He glanced at her, his tone firm. "We strike the core. All this," he motioned to the drones swarming the desert, "is controlled from inside. You hit the brain, the body dies." The survivors looked doubtful, but Syria's chest tightened with determination. She remembered every mistake, every painful reminder of her pride. This time, she would not be the one to ruin their chance. She turned to her people. "We follow him." The group moved at Marcus's command. He led them into a narrow trench, that wound toward the hub, hidden from the sweeping scanners above. The air grew colder as they neared the structure, shadows stretching long under its crimson glow dotted the trench's end. Marcus stopped and pulled a small pack from his armor. Inside were strange devices, metal orbs, etched with glowing lines. Syria frowned. "What are those?" "Charges," he said simply. "Explosives, old tech, but it works." He handed one to her, meeting her gaze. "Set this against the core. Don't hesitate. Don't second guess. Understand?" Her hands trembled as she took it. She wanted to argue, to demand why he chose her. But deep down, she knew the answer. This was her test. Her moment to prove she was more than pride. She nodded. "I understand." The group pressed forward, slipping closer to the hub. The structure loomed above them, its surface humming like a living beast. Drones clung to the walls, their eyes glowing faintly as they scanned the sand. Marcus motioned for silence, his hand raised. Then it happened. One of the survivors stumbled, their foot striking a loose rock. The sound cracked through the silence like a gunshot. The nearest drone's head snapped around. Red eyes blazed as alarms wailed through the air. The desert erupted with movement as drones swarmed from every direction, metal wings slicing the wind. "Run!" Marcus barked, shoving Syria forward. Blasts lit the sand as beams of searing light rained down. Survivors screamed, scattering through the trench. Syria clutched the explosive to her chest, her heart pounding like thunder. She stumbled toward the base of the hub, Marcus covering her with precise fire from his rifle. Each shot struck a drone, sparks flying, but more kept coming. Syria reached the wall of the hub, her breath ragged. She pressed the charge against the metal surface. Nothing happened. Her panic surged. "It's not working." Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. "You have to arm it. Twist the top." Her fingers shook as she twisted the orb. It glowed, bright, pulsing with energy. The hum of the hub seemed to deepen, as if it sensed the threat. She planted it firmly, praying it would hold. Drones closed in, their beams scorching the ground around her. Marcus appeared at her side, pulling her away just as one blast struck where she had been standing. The explosion flung sand into the air, heat searing her skin. "We need more," Marcus shouted. "2 more charges opposite sides. Go." The survivors obeyed, scattering toward the hub's flanks. Syria ran with Marcus, weaving through laser fire, the air alive with the shriek of machines. Every moment felt stolen, every breath borrowed. At the far side, she planted her second charge. Her pride no longer screamed for control, it screamed for survival, for her people, for the chance to end the nightmare. One by one, the charges locked into place. Marcus pulled Syria back toward the trench, firing relentlessly. "It's set, get down." The survivors threw themselves into the sand. Syria fell beside Marcus, shielding her head as the hub erupted in blinding light. The explosion tore through the desert, flames rising high into the sky. The ground shook like thunder, shards of black metal raining down. When the smoke cleared, silence followed. The drones that had filled the sky now crashed lifeless into the sand, their red eyes dim. The hub's pulsing glow was gone. Syria lifted her head, her chest heaving. The nightmare was over, at least here. Cheers erupted from the survivors. Some wept, some embraced, their voices rising in relief. For the first time, hope burned brighter than fear. Syria turned to Marcus, her amber eyes wide. His armor was scorched, his face streaked with dust, but his expression was steady as always. He looked at her, not as a fool, not as a burden, but as an equal. "You did it," he said simply. She shook her head. "We did it, because I listened." The words were hard to admit, but they carried no shame now. She had learned the cost of ignoring him, the pain of her pride. And now, by following his wisdom, she had saved her people. But Marcus's eyes were not celebrating. His gaze was distant, heavy. This was only one hub. There are more. Many more. This war isn't over. Syria's breath caught. The victory that had just lit her chest flickered with dread. She realized then that this was not the end of her trial. It was only the beginning. And if she wanted her people to survive, she would have to keep walking the path she had never imagined, beside the human she once despised. The desert was quiet after the explosion, too quiet. The blackened wreck of the hub smoldered in the distance, its twisted remains scattered across the sands. Syria stood with her people, her chest heaving, sweat and dust clinging to her skin. Around her, the survivors whispered in awe. For the first time since the war began, the sky was clear, no red eyes, no buzzing wings. Yet Marcus didn't celebrate. He stood apart, scanning the horizon with cold focus. His armor still smoked from the battle, his rifle low at his side. Syria walked toward him, her voice soft but sharp. "Why do you not rejoice? We destroyed it. We are free." He shook his head slowly. "You're free for today, but not tomorrow." Her heart sank. "How many more are there?" "Dozens. Maybe hundreds," Marcus said, his jaw tight. "Each hub controls a swarm. Kill one, you cut off a limb. But the beast lives, and somewhere, someone is guiding them all." The weight of his words pressed heavy on her chest. She looked back at her people, their fragile smiles, their tired faces. They thought this victory meant survival. But Marcus was right, it was only borrowed time. Still, something in her refused to let despair take root. For the first time, she believed her people had a chance, because she no longer stood alone. The survivors gathered around her, their eyes waiting for her command. The older warrior who had stormed out was gone, his pride leading him into silence of the sands. Now she was their voice. And Marcus, though human, had become their shield. Syria straightened, ignoring the ache in her ribs. "Then we will keep fighting. Not as blind fools, but with eyes open. If the enemy adapts, we will adapt. If it takes every drop of blood, we will endure." Her people murmured agreement, but some looked at Marcus with unease. One of them spoke trembling. "And a human? Will he lead us now?" Syria turned to Marcus. He met her gaze steadily, neither asking nor demanding. For a long moment she said nothing, her pride and her truth warring in her chest. Then she spoke clear and strong. "He is not our master, but he is our ally. Without him, I would be dead. Without him, we would still be hunted. If you cannot see that, then you are already lost." The words surprised even her. Once she would have never admitted such things. Now they felt as natural as the desert wind. Marcus gave a faint nod, respect flickering in his eyes. We'll need more than allies. We'll need to fight together. And to do that, you'll have to listen. Syria smirked faintly, though her eyes softened. Then speak, human. This time I will listen. The survivors moved to gather supplies. From the wreckage, bits of machine and shards of black metal littered the sand, and Marcus began showing them how to use it, how to fashion traps, weapons, tools from the pieces of their enemy. Syria watched in silence, learning, memorizing. Every lesson he gave struck deep. By nightfall, they had turned the ruins into an outpost. Fires burned within the cave, weapons piled in makeshift racks, watch positions set along the ridge. Syria stood at the edge, staring out at the vast desert. She thought of her arrogance, of every moment she had refused Marcus's words. Each mistake had nearly cost her life, nearly doomed her people. Pain had been her punishment, but it had also been her teacher. Pride had blinded her, but it had also forced her to grow. Marcus joined her, his armor off now, his face lined with exhaustion. He stood beside her in silence for a long time before speaking. You've changed. She turned her head, her silver hair catching the firelight. No, I was forced to see truth. You didn't change me. Pain did. He gave a faint, tired smile. Pain's a good teacher, but a harsh one. Syria looked at him for a long moment. Then, with a voice quieter than the desert night, she said, perhaps humans are not fools. Perhaps they are necessary. Marcus raised an eyebrow. That's as close to a compliment as I'll ever get, isn't it? She almost laughed, almost. Do not get used to it. But in her heart, she knew the truth. Without this human, she would have died in the sand. Without him, her people would have vanished into the desert winds. Pride had told her she knew better. Pain had proven her wrong. And in the end, it was not arrogance that saved them. It was trust. The stars burned bright above the desert, endless and vast. For the first time, Syria looked at them not with fear, but with resolve. The war was far from over. More hubs waited, more battles loomed. But she would no longer walk blindly into pain. She would walk beside the human dot, and together, they would give the galaxy reason to fear.